Yeah.
6 o'clock.
I'd like to call to order the village board meeting for Monday, October 25th. Roll call, please.
Trustee Brochus,
Here.
trustee Enthusiast,
Here.
trustee Brunner,
Here.
trustee Paul Mikowski,
Here.
trustee Hartman,
Present.
trustee Kellewater,
Here.
president Langfeld.
Present by Zoom.
I'd like to do the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the opportunity for anyone. Issue, please observe the time limit of 3 minutes. While the village's input from residents, it may not discuss or act on any issue that is not duly noticed on the agenda. Those wishing to speak during the meeting are encouraged to register prior to the start of the meeting. You may also register on comment by sending an email. Do we have anyone to?
Yeah, I did have a registration for public comment by email sent to me by Greg Valesky, 7016 Laufenberg Boulevard. It states that he was not able to make it to the meeting tonight, but wanted to make sure that he voiced his opinion regarding the proposed speed limit reduction on Laufenberg. He would be in favor of reducing the speed limit to 20 miles per hour and hopes that the board feels the same, as he believes it would be one step in the right direction in making the boulevard just a little safer.
We have a motion for the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
One second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Jay wants to speak on behalf of the village president, please.
Yeah, thank you, Judy. I just have one comment. I just want to fill everybody in on the progress of our pilot program down at the village facility for the leaf vacuum. So far, compliance has been really pretty good of people dropping off just leaves to the leaf only area and the other type of yard waste to the other side. Jerry says there's clearly staff savings in using the vacuum. We haven't done a calculation on that yet, but one calculation that we do have is it appears that one load of leaves loaded by the vacuum equals what used to take 3 loads. So we're saving about 66% of the loads needed for transporting leaves from the site to our compost pile. So that's probably a lot larger than most of us expected, but that's great news. That's it. Thank you.
I have nothing to say. Any other trustees?
Yeah, I got you.
Andy?
Congratulations to the boys and girls cross-country teams for winning sectionals this past weekend. The girls are for sure going to win state. The boys are working hard, so that's a really good thing. And I'd just like to pay tribute to Evan, Jack, and Simon, who we lost a couple of weeks ago. It's been really hard on the community. I just want to acknowledge that that's something we're dealing with.
Village administrator.
Okay, I have 3 updates here. I'm just gonna go ahead and go down the line, and then the last update here, I prepared some slides. First of all, the well number 3, I wanted just to provide an update. The Park and Rec Committee did hold their public visioning session on October 18th. I believe they had approximately 11 participants and 5 comments, mostly regarding generator use in operation and noise. And then also choosing a color scheme that will blend it into the tree line there. Online commenting is still open for this until November 18th. And I believe they've gotten 2 comments through that process. The fence, there is a protective fence up right now. Drilling will start approximately November 1st or after. We do have a pre-construction meeting with the driller on Wednesday. So we'll keep updates on our website as we have with other projects. Moving on to the library roof. So we've had some damage at the library roof. As most of you know, we started that project, the re-roofing project, at the end of September. Just about October 7th, and the 5 days after that, we received a lot of rain, almost every day. And so with the roof being halfway done there, we did experience leaking through the facility. I do have pictures here that I wanted to show you of what is going on inside. So this is on approximately October 7th in that weekend. As you can see, half the roof was done, and water was actually, for the first part of it, was coming through the dormers on the front side, south side. You can see here the water making it through the ceiling tiles falling, water on the floor. This was from the community room, which we had to take out all of the insulation because it was just so damp. And you can see where they tried to tarp it, but the water got through. Again, from the community room, the access to the attic, the ventilation system. This is in the story time room, and you can see all the trim being taken off to access the drywall behind there. This is along the north wall, which in the following days after October 7th, I believe during that weekend, this portion of the building sustained the most damage as we were able to remedy some of the issues with the dormers. More ceiling tiles taken off. You can see we had Service Master in there. They were actually in there until today, and so they were mitigating and taking out all the wet insulation and drying. You can see, so these are large plastic tubes that go into the attic with the blowing machines. These blowing machines were throughout the building, mitigating any wet spots. And I believe this was the reason for the cold at night. This is in the main room. All the ceiling tiles that have come down, all the ceiling tiles are wet. We project, or we estimate about 150 ceiling tiles have come down throughout the whole building. And then the installation on in between those tiles and the roof. This is all on the west side of the west side of the building. And again, that north wall, you can see all of the drywall being taken off and the trim taken off. That's the damage. And some damage framing. This I think was over. So that's what I have for pictures. Right now, like I said, the mitigation team with Service Master, I believe they're pulling out all their equipment today or have. And then we'll be checking, doing a final check for wet spots. Currently, we are working with the contractor and their insurance companies to make sure that the library is repaired to what it was or better. And so we'll work through that process. Our biggest priority right now is to secure the roof to make sure that the roof is put on before winter comes and secure any exterior items. What we'll project to do is if we can't get our contractor in here to do immediate repairs right away, is to do some kind of temporary repair so that we can get people back into the library.
Was there any damage to the books?
I don't believe there were any significant damage to books. I think some might have got cost, but the library staff was really good at making sure that they covered books on time. Electronics, computers, etc. And moving them out of harm's way.
So do you know, is the roof done or what's the status of the roof in terms of the?
So the roof, the shingles have been put on. I think they are working on the flashing now and the trim. And then they got a bunch of gutter work. There's some damage from debris that they were throwing off the side of the building. So they're working through all of that right now. Any questions on the library at this point? Next update here is regarding County Highway KP, the bridge replacement. This is headed by or led by the county. And Strand is the contractor for this. He's the engineering firm. They do have a public information meeting on November 4th. Thursday, November 4th. That will be at the, it's going to be at the fire station from 5 until 7. It is a open house, so it's intended for you to walk through and ask questions. Again, that project is intended to be in 2023, and then the village board will see some items in regards to some decorative items to make it match, to have it match the county P bridge for the 2023 CIP budget. Any questions on that? And if not, I'm going to head to the slides on hazard mitigation, just to provide you with an update of what we've been doing there. So the emergency team, the village's emergency team plus residents have been working on identifying natural hazards, assessing hazards, prioritizing hazards, and then determining a plan of action from there. The reason why we're doing this is because we participated in previous years. Dane County Emergency Management is currently updating their plan for the 2023 year. And as part of that, they are required to have municipalities that want to participate join in. It's been a very quick process, and so we've tried to keep pace with it. As you can see, multiple steps in regards to identifying and then narrowing it down. Right now, we are on the step of public participation and outreach. So this is a part of that effort. The local steering committee, again, consists of the emergency management team. The resident here is Timothy Hilbrand. And we're still, we did open it up for the public. We didn't have any much interest outside of the village there. The top hazards. So we received the matrix. We looked at the previous plan. Several hazards were listed. We went ahead and went through it and graded impact and then how often it happens, area. A number of different grading criteria. The 5 highest scores for tornadoes, flooding, windstorm, lightning strike, and winter storms. And then once we've identified the top hazards, we needed to create specific problem statements. And for this, we identified the flooding along Brewery Creek from the 2018 flood. Flooding from the internal drainage issue, so the bathtub effect, and again, that was identified through that 2018 flood and that flood mitigation study. We've heard of a need for a community tornado shelter, especially in that library municipal pool site where the facility is currently for a tornado shelter that's not large enough for the amount of people that potentially could visit on a single day there. And then obviously the village does not have a mass gathering staging area. All of those are private and school operated. And so that is something that is needed, whether it's for Red Cross to come in, whether it's for emergency management planning, or if someone had to be out of their home for an extended amount of time. We simply don't have those facilities that are under the control of the village here. So we propose mitigation strategies off of that. For the Brewery Creek and for the internal drainage, we derive those off of that 2018 flood study. For the Brewery Creek, addressing upstream retention north and east of County Highway P. For the internal drainage, looking at a series of items to help that, crossings, culverts, bridges. They all are issues with the flow and potential damming areas. Creating a high flow or overflow diversion route for water to get out of the village faster. And then creating a stormwater or floodwater management plan. These things, so it's non-structural, but they'll have information in there about awareness and warning systems, continue on annual maintenance. And what more can we do to make it more sustainable? River type habitat or native plantings, buffers, riprap, etc. Kind of just spelling out a way to get towards that. Then for the tornado shelter issue, obviously construction and the addition of a tornado shelter. And then the mass gathering is the same, creating enough space in our future.
With the flooding, we all met, like the fire station was a big place that a lot of them gathered at. Is that what they're kind of looking at doing that, kind of like having the fire station back that up?
Yep, so the fire station obviously is a great space, but as we've seen in the last couple of years here, the conflict with the pandemic and fire and rescue in one building. We also been talking to them about a potential mass gathering space. My understanding was that there was some conflict. In that event, I believe, with people wanting to stay there or agencies wanting to stay there longer and then interrupt those services. So, finding some way to coordinate that and just having more space would be better.
Thank you.
So, just closing here, public comments, public hearing and input. I do have a website or a webpage dedicated specifically for this. All the documents that we've submitted to Dane County are also posted on there. We intend to have those up until November 15th, which is the deadline for us to submit. And then we also will hold a staff run public hearing on November 11th here in the hall at 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Bill.
All right.
Bobby, any other reports for anyone else? You have anything to say? Okay. Moving on to general business. One, discussion of possible action regarding the speed limit on Laufenberg. And Jay, do you want to talk first?
I do. Let me just see if I can get there we go. You received the memo, so I'm not gonna go over that point by point. I think Laufenberg presents unique characteristics that none of our other roads have. Obviously, the one is it's extremely narrow, which makes it difficult to avoid difficult situations because you don't have as much room as a standard street. Generally, when you're driving down something more narrow, your vision is only looking a little bit ahead of your vehicle versus if it was wide open, you're looking farther down. So there's some reaction time differences that narrow roads present. If you need to avoid object, you don't have much room to do it, and a lot of times not enough time, which builds into how we have the boulevard designed and some of the fixed objects. If you would try to avoid something, it's very likely that you would end up either into the boulevard area, and generally that's not a bad thing, but parts of that boulevard is extremely steep, so you would end up hitting the other side of the boulevard as a pretty solid fixed item. We have water, stormwater drains. Some of them are at ground level, others are above ground level that also become a fixed item to hit. On the side that's the non-boulevard side, we have probably a half dozen homes that have extremely large boulders right up near the curb line. And there's others that have what I would call large rocks, but not necessarily boulders. I think the smaller ones would probably move. The narrow roads also make it less room for passing pedestrians and the distance between a pedestrian and a vehicle. So I think with the three things that have been mentioned, the narrow road, the boulevard design, and the fixed objects along the road would be expensive to eliminate. But I think if we would reduce the speed, it would mitigate some of those problems. It's pretty standard that the slower you're going, the quicker you can stop. The slower you're going gives you more time to react and view things ahead of you. It is right now very common throughout United States of cities and villages looking at reducing speeds. You can see Madison has made a big effort on it. In researching this a little bit, the UK started doing it in the 1990s. So there are just incredible amount of research and studies done over there on the benefits of reducing speed. Now, the reason some of you are probably wondering why it's here, not the Public Safety Committee, this was put on the agenda for the October meeting, and they tabled it. I think it's important for this to be acted on. I think we've lived with that road for quite a while. I think most of us who have walked it or driven it know what are the difficulties and how it's very different than other streets. I think this is a small step the village can take to really have a positive impact on that road. The cost is under $160. I looked at the bid for the signs for the creek crossing and speed signs. I think were like $38.97. The posts and the harnesses are already on the roadway. It would just be a matter of replacing the signs. And a second benefit to this would be that this would be interesting to see what kind of compliance we have and what kind of differences it makes, because in the future, we may want to look at reducing speed limits in our residential areas as a whole, since there seems to be a lot of studies showing huge benefits in that. And I think if you would talk with the chief, one of the number one complaints that the police department receives are speeding complaints. And clearly with streets without sidewalks, the lower speed limit, I think, makes things a lot safer. I have the one statistic in there that shows the percentages of fatality or great bodily injury from 20 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour. So I am hoping to make a motion to at least the current Laufenburg reduce it from 25 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour.
Do I have a second?
Can I ask a few questions before I second it?
No, you got it. You can second it or no?
Then we can do a discussion though?
I'll second the motion. Now we can have a discussion.
Now we can do discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, so first question, I guess, is why 25 to 20 instead of 25 to 15? Because I also travel Laufenburg quite often, twice a day, to drop my kids off at daycare. And I do appreciate the desire to make it a safer space, especially with people walking their kids to the bus stop and and from the bus stop every day. So I'm just wondering why we're not gonna go to a safer lower mile per hour. That's
Well,
my
I
question.
can, the reason I picked 20 is that seems to be what has been done across the nation. I didn't see a lot of them where they lowered it to 15. While I agree with you, considering that school zones went from 20 to 15 probably 20 years ago. But right now, the reason I went to 20 was that was pretty much the standard for residential neighborhoods on the studies and looking at other communities across the nation that had done that, including Madison.
Bill?
So I got a couple things here. One, I understand that you feel there's an urgency for this, but I think it still belongs in public safety and let them hash it out rather than us hashing it out here in the village board. That's the whole purpose. And Jay, honestly, that's what you've been telling us every time we bring something up. You want to go to committee. Let the committee deal with it. That's point number one. Point number two is I don't have a problem lowering the speed limit, but you know, I've been trying to get speed limits lowered on Bourbon. I've been trying to get no parking signs, and all that's gone to committee, and either it's been held up or not. But I remember trying to get Bourbon going down to 25 after the construction on Main Street, and you were happy with 30 on Bourbon. So, you know, there's a lot of kids out there. There's a lot of safety needs out there. But I don't know if we should cherry pick one over the other. I would be in favor of letting safety do what they're supposed to do, then bring it to the village board.
Doug?
Okay, can I just respond to that?
Sure.
Judy?
Sure.
All right, I guess, Bill, I absolutely followed the process. Not only did I ask for it to be placed on the agenda, what it was, but I did contact the chief and the chairperson about my concerns and that I was going to do that. So they did have an opportunity to discuss it. They chose, and I'm guessing Doug is going to say why, they chose to table it. And I don't think the board or committees should hold the board where they can't take action on something. So I think I followed the procedure to a T. On your concerns about other roads, I somewhat agree with you, but this road in particular is extremely unique in the sense of how narrow and how many fixed items we have along the roadway that I do think it requires special attention. There's no other boulevard that has steep drops in it. There's no other road that has so many huge boulders right up against the curb. There's no other road that has boulevard that I'm aware of that have above ground storm water drain. So I think there is enough uniqueness to this road that I think it does need special consideration, but I want to let you know that I am following the procedures. I did what I could and they chose to table, so I don't have control of what a committee does, but I do believe that they had an opportunity, and now I believe the board should have an opportunity also.
Doug, then Bill.
So I'll, first comments I want to make are my personal comments living on Laughlin Boulevard. Our house was one of the first completed there. Jay, I agree with the hazards that you've identified. It's always been a concern of mine that a child would come out from a parked car because of the narrowness of the boulevards. My home office stares right out the front window to the boulevard. I have been impressed that there hasn't been an issue or even near misses that I'm aware of in the 19 to 20 years I've lived there. I do not like the design of that boulevard. I'm not disagreeing with some of what you stated as potential hazards. The Public Safety Committee had 3 items brought up to it. One was no parking the entire length of Laufenberg Boulevard. One was 2 additional stop signs. One was an additional 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. So the committee discussed it, and we did table the action because there has been no increase in traffic. And if you go through a 5-year history of complaints, traffic stops, and citations, it shows there's not a hazard or issue at this time. I have seen no uptick in any kind of traffic. So what the Public Safety Committee talked about, and I think there's some fear of the new development increasing some traffic or even some fear of some people cutting through. I personally don't see that as a cut through. Candace, Montag and myself are both on the PSC who live right there. We felt comfortable. The data on traffic complaints, so in the last 5 years, from 2017 to 2021, there was 1 auto complaint related to Laufenberg Boulevard. There was 2 traffic stops related to Laufenberg Boulevard, and there was 0 citations. In that same amount of time, there was 330 traffic complaints in the village, 996 traffic stops, and 0 citations. So I'm not disagreeing with some of the hazard that is unique to Laufenberg Boulevard. That has been there for the 19 or 20 years that I've lived there. My personal opinion in that of the Public Safety Committee was there hasn't been an increase in traffic yet. If there are concerns, it should be looked at that time.
Thank you. Bill?
Trustee Lucius, wanted to comment.
Okay. Kevin? Sir?
Thanks, Bill. Sorry to cut you off, Bill. I have been concerned about this road forever too, and know people on it and hear a lot of complaints. Whether they report those complaints to the proper authorities or not, I guess is probably a topic for another day. But they should, because it's certainly being counted when they do. But there is, I drive down it quite a bit to visit friends, and there are issues. There are issues that need to be dealt with at some way, shape, or form. And I didn't realize all 3 of those came to public safety as a package, and I think that's probably wise they did. I'm in favor of lowering the speed limit. After I talked to a few people over the weekend that live on the road, and they were in favor of it. They're worried more about being able to enforce that more so than, if you put 20, are they really just going to go 25 and said it's 25 and they go 30 now or more? They also showed some support for stop signs, an additional stop sign there, but I guess that's a topic for a different day. I also think there are issues that were brought up in this presentation that I think we can address. I'm not sure if these boulders are okay in the right of way, but I think there are safety issues that can be addressed that were brought up today. But if there is a vote, or when there is a vote, I guess I'm going to be in favor of lowering it to 20 today, though I would appreciate it going back through the process for the other items. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Otherwise, I'll go.
Go ahead. And I'll go.
Okay. Personally, I do think it needs to follow the protocol and go back to safety. I'm not going to vote for it tonight. I'm not supporting it. I think until I see that there is a reason, you're right. Until I see the new development and I see that there is more hazard and more traffic stops and so forth. And I mean, right now on every road in Cross Plains could use no parking or slowing down. I just feel like we are just picking one. It is a narrow one, that's true, but people on Bourbon Road are all complaining, and that road's wide, and they all complain about the speeding on that road and so forth. I feel like people complain on that road more than the other road, and that one's wide, and I walk all the roads in Cross Plains. So I'm gonna tell you, I think at this point in time, I'm not supporting that. I think maybe after the development, and maybe when we show more traffic hazards and so forth, and maybe at that point in time I will. But I do think even at that point in time, I think it needs to go back to public safety first.
All right, can I make one more comment, please?
Sure.
Yeah. Here's where I think we're having a little difficulty. I'm not sure we want to be reactionary on something like this. the numbers that Doug threw out are obviously exactly what's happened. I think there's a lot of underreporting or not reporting at all with the problems. But are we going to wait for a child to get hit and then say, oh boy, we knew there were problems here, now we got to lower the speed limit? Or do we want to try to get ahead of this and be proactive and do something that may prevent a bad incident? And I guess on this whole thing, I'm not sure what the value is in sending it back to the Public Safety Committee. If they're going to table it again, then we're just in a big circle and we don't get to really take care of what I considered an issue that we should be taking care of. So I guess I would like to see the vote tonight. And I don't think that a no vote because it didn't follow process is really correct, because it did follow process. It went to the Public Safety Committee.
Okay, I got Andy, Bill, and then Doug.
Okay.
Well, Judy basically said everything that I was thinking. It's not so much about a process, but if we're gonna be proactive about saving kids' lives by lowering speed limits, there's a lot of places in Cross Plains we should add to this list right now, including Bourbon Street. So, like, I'm not gonna vote against it because you circumvented the committee process. However, it just seems it's leaving a bad taste in my mouth the way this is happening. That's all I gotta say.
Bill.
So two things, then I'm done. One is, even though Jay, you feel that you've kind of crossed your T's and dotted your I's, you really haven't, and this is really setting a precedence for any village trustee to say, hey, if the Public Safety Committee tables it or doesn't act on it the way I want them to, then I'm going to bring it to the village board. That's not then why you even have the Public Safety Committee if we're just going to override them and not do what their recommendations are in the first place. Secondly, as far as the boulders are concerned, I don't believe the village put those boulders on the property line. I think those are owned by the residents within those areas, and we just passed a ordinance or an adjustment to our ordinance just a few months ago that said anything, 6 or 10 feet from the road is village, and if it doesn't belong there, it could be moved and at the owner's expense. So, you know, although I know those boulders are heavy and they're trying to keep people from coming on the road, it's not a village issue. So that's all I got to say about that. Thank you.
Yes.
Kind of the last piece that, you know, I want to just add is, as I've mentioned, since I lived there since, you know, the last 20 years, I agree with the hazard and the identifications of that. I have been interested in and watched as that development gets developed. It isn't going to be one day there's 75 new homes. So because I was one of the first houses to move in, I saw the St. Francis edition fill in, and it was 6 or 8 or 10 homes a year. Gradually, there was a couple more cars. I think that's what we're going to see. And I'm most disappointed in my friends and neighbors that don't follow stop signs and safety rules. I don't feel that the data or time shows. I drive that every day. I've been pleasantly surprised how safe everybody is. I also think that's part of the reason that the no parking isn't a good idea. Some of those parked cars actually slow people down, and they look around, and DOT stuff will tell you that. So I want to be as safe as anybody in this village. And I think if we follow the posted speeds and the traffic lights and stop signs, that we're a safe community. And I'm disappointed sometimes when everybody thinks it's outsiders who won't follow our safety laws, when I think it's a lot of our friends and neighbors. And you know, I don't have any problem if it comes back to public safety. I would have a vote on it. The reason I believe we tabled it was because it seems like there's this idea that a few more houses are gonna cause a big cut through, and I don't believe that's going to happen. I don't see that turning into a raceway or a shortcut. I see some more people joining our community, buying lot just like I did in the early 2000s, and you know, I think some of the traffic will go up to Little Point and Peak, some of it will come down next by my house. So, you know, I would also request, I guess, a roll call vote, and then we can take action.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. A motion by Jay, a second by Michael. Roll call vote, please.
Is
Trustee
there an
Brown,
opportunity for public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't see you. Yes, public comment. Is that you, Seth?
That's me, if it's okay. I was not online in time for the original public comment before the agenda. I'll try to keep it short, though. I'm a resident of Laufenburg. I'm an owner of one or two of those large boulders. I'm also a traffic engineer, so I have a lot of interest in this topic. First of all, I think I will say Jay is correct. I think he went through the proper procedure. It went to the Public Safety Committee, who's an advisory committee. They chose not to provide any advice, essentially. So I don't think it's a problem per se that he's bringing it to the board. So I will support him on that. I don't think it's an issue to go back to public safety and say, hey, we really need your feedback on this. To the issues in question, I have concerns about lowering the speed limit. I think just arbitrarily lowering speed limits, the people that aren't obeying the 25 aren't going to obey the 20. I think it might prevent a false sense of security to people. And so I'd like to see some additional enforcement if we believe that there is a speeding problem. It doesn't sound like we've given out any speeding tickets. The one crash that I'm aware of was a drunk person going through my front yard, somehow avoiding all my strategically placed boulders and trees and taking out my neighbor's mailbox and one of their rocks. And so a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit's not going to do anything to stop a drunk idiot. I think there are some design issues that could be fixed. If my rocks need to be moved, it's never been presented to me as a problem in the 18 years that I've lived here, but I'd like, it's worth a discussion. I'd like it to be brought to me instead of basically just put on an agenda saying, oh, this is a problem when I've never heard about it as a problem before. I think the stuff in the median, the drainages, I think with some grading, which wouldn't be that expensive, we could resolve those issues. Because I agree, that's if someone goes down in the ditch and hits that thing that's on the bottom picture, that's a hazard that could be relatively easily fixed. And so I'd be very hesitant to support, a vote on this tonight. I think, as Doug said, that I'd kind of like to see what happens with this development, and we can always go and address it later. I'd like to see if there is going to be a push to lower this. Are we going to do a before and after study, and what kind of technology are we going to use to basically collect data before and after? Because some of the typical things like speed trailers are not good examples of collecting speed data for this purpose. So I think there's a lot of issues that need to be discussed. And so I was one that testified at the Public Safety Committee meeting. I think if you want to bring it up, I'd like to see it go back through that so there can be additional discussion. But in general, I'm not in favor of voting to lower the speed limit at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. I'm sorry,
Trustee Brochus,
No.
Trustee Thuzius,
No.
Trustee Brunner,
No,
Trustee Paul Mikowski,
No.
Trustee Hartman,
No.
Trustee Kettlebaiter,
No,
President Langfeld.
Yes.
motion fails. Discussion of possible action regarding the conceptual plan to rezone lot 70 to 77 in the Creek Crossing subdivision to plan development district with an underlying district of duplex residential.
So I will do a brief introduction, and then we do have the developer, Jeff Lee here, and he can answer any questions or provide more detail. And then we can go from there. What I'm gonna do here is just quickly jump to the site plan. I think that provides the most data. And then also flip back and forth between what the waivers or flexibilities are being requested for this project. So developer, Creekside Townhomes LLC, is proposing 4 sets of duplexes. So 8 units total on these lots, 1 unit per lot. And they are pretty much twin homes or 0 lot line. As you can see here, they do face the street with a garage through what is a drive-through driveway here. In planning this and in discussing very early on in consideration of these type of homes, one of the flexibilities that is being asked is a shorter setback from the front, from in the front yard. And I'm going to flip here to the different requests. So on in this first column here, you'll see the standard restrictions and requirements in the duplex 6 residential zone. The second column here are lots 70 through 75 that's being asked for those homes, and then lots 76 through 77. I just want to make a note. So I'll just go through them. The minimum lot area in a normal DR6 is 6,000. Here it's 3,800 and 2,800. That's the lot area. And that's dwelling unit per twin home. So that's not the actual square footage of the home. It's the actual lot. So then that changes the maximum density amounts. So in 70 to 75 is 9 dwellings per acre. Again, these lots are an acre. And for 76 to 77 is 13. As you can see, the lots are the width of the lots are smaller than your standard lot size. So we're moving from 50 to 32 feet. The building coverage and landscape are the same, and will meet the district's requirement. Again, 32 for each twin home. The minimum setback requirement for the front and the street side are requested to change from 25 to 15 feet for each. The minimum side setback is 7 feet, which is on the exterior of the home, or 0 feet is where they share a common wall. The rear setback will meet the DR6 district, and the height will meet. For the minimal building or principal building separation, they're asking for flexibility there for the 14 feet to reflect the 7 feet side setbacks. And then the minimum pavement setback, the requirement is 5 feet. And because of staff's recommendation to move the driveway back to allow for temporary parking in their personal driveway and to provide a more shallow curve, the minimum pavement setback to this rear lot line is 2.8 feet, or 2 feet 8 inches. So that requires a flexibility. And then minimum parking that meets the DR6 district. I believe everything else on here meets the DR6 district. This highlighted area shows in the document a 5 feet minimum setback. Again, they changed that to 2.5 after comments from the staff. Included in your packet are site plans, landscaping plans, sign plans for the dressing, detail on building specs. And so it's the developer's intention to turn around and have already submitted an application for the zoning change to a plan development. That public hearing is set to take place at the Plan Commission, I believe next Monday. And then it will go, with a decision at the plan commission and then come back to the village board at that point. Again, they submitted a lot of detail, more, than required for the concept plan in hopes of requiring that comment, so that they can move quickly on this. I do want to note this is for zoning and doesn't necessarily obligate the village to allow for them to start construction right away. There's still some checks that we need to get through for the construction and the dedication of the public services before they can actually pull a building permit. So we're taking care of the zoning and the land use now for these 6 lots. The building permit functions will come later. Anything you want to add?
No, I'm available for questions, and our site engineers are online as well, Matt Schreiner. So maybe if you, I think the best way to give folks an idea of what we're talking about here is show the pictures.
Sure.
We've developed this product in Fitchburg. Fitchburg, the units are significantly closer together, the individual buildings. Fitchburg, we're closer to the sidewalk. Otherwise, it's a good representation of the concept. Yes.
So is that, so the 7 feet offset rather than the 10 feet, I believe? I mean, is that what we're seeing? Are we seeing here in this photo in Fitchburg, what you're planning on doing, like almost exactly in Cross Plains?
Except in Fitchburg, in Cross Plains will be farther apart. Fitchburg, it was, Matt can give me the exact number, but I think we were just shy of 4 feet. So there's 8 feet total between the buildings.
Okay.
And Cross Plains will be 14 feet between the buildings.
Okay.
Correct.
Anything else? Any questions? Michael?
Why do you build this such that you're putting the driveways in the back and you have this private drive, creating all this impervious surface when you flip the buildings around? You have the driveways going toward the front, you open up the backyard. I'm uncertain if I just like all this asphalt laid back there.
Matt can comment on this, but actually there's less pervious area. So we would still have, if we followed the zoning, the buildings would be set 25 feet back off the road, and there'd be individual driveways, in front of each garage. Whereas here, the garages are side loaded, if you will, with the alley in the back. And it's an aesthetic. It's the, your front porch facing the city street. Everyone will have their own private patio in the back. So it's an aesthetic, I guess is the best way to put it.
Sure, I'm just not sure I'm comfortable with it, especially because in this design, I noticed you're not going to allow any overnight parking on the driveway patio, whereas if you flip it around, move it 25 feet off, someone could use their driveway as parking, whereas in this configuration, you're planning on having street parking be the guest parking. Just pull your parking off the street onto
The no parking was a staff comment, so I wasn't at that meeting. Perhaps Bill can talk about where that came from, but each unit is 2 bedrooms. Each unit will have its own large 2-car garage. And in response to the no parking in the alley, we created the parking aprons in the back for temporary parking. So if you come in, you got groceries, you can temporarily pull in front of your garage, unload. You can go about the day. There is parking allowed on the street, so for guests, that is guests. If you have an overnight guests, so they park on the street. But
So just a couple of comments regarding the driveway. So we felt that it was necessary to not have any parking there just because of safety. If the fire truck would never go in there, we had that discussion, but if an ambulance needed to back up into a garage or to a garage to be able to pull someone out from there. We have things like garbage that's gonna go back there, garbage trucks that will go back there. They're gonna have private contracts for maintenance and snow plowing. But we felt that if we left vehicles back there, it would cause enough nuisance that made it unsafe. So that's that, and then just a comment on if we had flipped it, currently the lots, the way that they are set up, don't allow for that type in a standard duplex scenario where the garages are out front. The lots are generally 50 feet, so it allows for the minimum requirement of garage frontage to house frontage ratio. I believe the code currently requires 40%.
Sure, but under a planned development, you could waive that requirement as well. And backyard of the garages. I think I might have to just go see the place in Pittsburgh and check it out, but it's just, we don't have any private drives really like that in the village where you have a driveway heading behind it.
Yeah, we don't, and that was a very, that was a point that we were concerned about too. And that's why we require for that to be all privately maintained. So the village does not maintain anything in that driveway, that's all private.
Anybody else? Kevin, Jay?
Good, thank you.
No, I'm good, thanks.
Andy?
Yeah, just because it doesn't exist here yet, doesn't mean it's not gonna be good for the community, so just keep an open mind here.
And personally, I love the fact that they're gonna be plowing their own, so we don't have to pay for that. So they're gonna take care of all the plumbing back there, so. Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the concept plan as presented.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Bye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, discussion of possible action regarding a resolution approving no mow May 2022.
I move to approve no more May resolution for 2022.
I will second that motion.
Any discussion?
I have a comment.
If you don't want it.
We have members of the committee here and on Zoom, if there are any questions regarding the proposal.
Bill?
So does that mean that the village isn't gonna mow any of the property in May?
So the Park and Rec Committee is currently looking at our options for the parks. My understanding is the standard areas where we mow would most likely still be mowed. But that's something that we can discuss through the implementation stage.
Okay,
Yeah, it would be a lot of work to catch up on all areas that we did not mow.
yep,
any
I
areas.
agree.
You'd have to beg. You'd have to do something.
Yeah, so we did talk about this, we brought it to Parks and Rec a few months ago, prior to sustainability taking it up, and we did try and identify some places where no mow May could be participated and marketed for the village through Parks and Rec, but we haven't solidified any particular places. Mike definitely said we would need a hay baler to recover. So definitely trying to do it in a way that's sustainable for our employees in the village as well.
I have a question. So on personal property, it's still your own. You can do what you want. This is just your village, right?
It just allows people to participate. It
Right.
doesn't require them to, correct?
Thank you. Kevin, Jay?
Yeah, I have one comment. I'm all for it, for individuals to make that choice. On the resolution, I'm just a little concerned on the last part of now therefore, where it has encourage all citizens to support these efforts to protect our pollinators. I'm just wondering if people are going to interpret that if we're asking our citizens to support it, why aren't we doing it? I agree that we shouldn't do it in all the parks. If they can do something, I'm not sure all of us on the board are necessarily going to do it. So I'm just wondering if we change the wording just a tad to just say we support this. But I'm not sure the encouraging part. Are we encouraging people to be tolerant to their neighbors having long grass, or are we encouraging everybody to have long grass? That's the only part that when I read that, I kind of say, are we doing what we're asking citizens to do? But then again, I'm not sure exactly what people's thought were when they wrote that sentence.
Andy, do you want to respond?
Well, we can,
Or
Yeah.
whoever, oh, John.
What we really were discussing in that, and what that sentence says is there's going to be an educational aspect that the sustainability committee will take up. We will have stuff out on the website of why no mow is important. Just to say it very specifically to you as the village board, it is to keep the pollinators alive through the early growing season when there really isn't all that much food for them, so that we can have more of them in the regular growing season. Encourage means that there will be an educational program. I don't think there's any of us ever thought, it's a participatory thing. If you want to participate, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. And all we're really asking is that, the village do this as a test to see how it works. That the sustainability committee puts out education for the citizens so that they understand what it's all about. And then if you approve the resolution at the end of it, there will be an evaluation at the end to see if it was considered successful or not, whether the citizens want to keep doing it, whether there were citizen complaints and things like that.
Doug, then Andy.
I was just gonna add that, I think it's the first time we're trying this. I think if the committee with that education piece and the couple changes and or places where we'll need them all, whether it's a baseball field or whatever needed for some sports. I think encouraging the reason I think is fine, and I think the implementation we might change some wording next year or whatever. So I think we should try it, and I fully support it.
Andy?
Yeah, just to address Jay's point as well, I think encouragement is by waiving the 6-inch ordinance for the month of May for residents in general, right? That encourages them to participate in the event and to support pollinators, and it sort of goes with the aesthetic of Cross Plains, right? Sort of being like in tune with nature, trying to preserve the creek shed and the watershed, and just generally trying to do what we can to preserve the environment around us. Also, like once we decide through the Parks Department what properties might make sense, we can use those as advertisements and promotion and marketing for village residents to say like this particular park or this particular area will be participating in No Mow May. And that'll obviously have a money saving event for the village as well with lack of mowing for that particular month. And I would encourage Doug to think outside the box of how fun it could be to play baseball on 6 inches of grass. Just challenge your athletes a little bit more. So that's what I like.
Bill?
Lose the baseball.
So, I'm really not in favor of this, but I understand the thought process behind it. What I would like to see is if we do this as a one-year term, and then next year, after you evaluate it in 2022, then bring it back and say, okay, this is something that worked or something that didn't work. I would be in favor of that.
I thought that's what we were asking.
But I don't see that clearly in the resolution that this is only a one-year term.
It says that
2022 month of May.
2022. It's just for that 1 month. It's kind of considered a trial run. That's what was the thought on it.
Okay.
So I have a motion by Andy, second by Michael. Anybody on the other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Discussion and possible action regarding resolution authorization for the village of administrator to submit an application for neighborhood investment grant.
want a presentation on that first?
Same.
I'll make a motion to submit and allow staff to prepare and submit the application for the neighborhood investment grant.
Second.
Okay, so just a quick presentation on this and fill in. So we were made aware of a grant available through the Department of Administration and ARPA to provide grant funding for public spaces is what we will qualify under within this neighborhood investment grant. Now, we do have to relate it back to the impacts of the pandemic, and we intend to do that through the impact to students, the impact to economic development of small local businesses, and then the impact to seniors. As part of an understanding and reading through the program guidelines, there is a short turnaround time. So the deadline is November 4th to get together this application. Looking back through our files and looking at potentially a project that would fit, I looked to the community center / city hall or village hall MPD project that was proposed back in 2016 and saw that it would be rather a quick turnaround to update those documents to reflect an all recreation wellness complex. And the reason for this is because a village hall or PD or general operation type facility would not qualify for the grant. The grant does require a minimum project amount of $1 million, and then it goes all the way up to 15 million. I believe in 2016, we had a similar project with about 45,000 square feet pegged at I believe 12 or 13 million. And this project puts it right around that range. We did work with, or have worked with Park and Rec and staff to update the space needs from that time to make it fit within this 50,000 square feet. And we believe that we can get it done. Included in the packet is the updated site plan, which is a requirement for the application, the budget proposed, and that I will be drafting the application material. It is competitive, so that's why you don't see it in this packet.
I personally just want to thank you, Bill, for taking the time to do this. I love it. I think it would be great if we can get it, the more the merrier. So, and I know it wasn't easy, and I know we had to throw it all together because the time thing. So thank you for doing that. Anybody else? Oh, sorry, Bill and Doug.
I like this. I think it's overdue. I would just be cautious that people look at this, and this is at the picture on, or the layout on page
130 PDF.
Yeah, 130. But this is not a final draft. This is not a final copy. We saw this when we bought this property, that we kind of laid out, what might fit in here. And we're going to see the same thing happen with this project. It's like, well, where's the village hall going to go? Blah, blah, blah. Where's this going to go? Where's this going to go? And so I would just be really wary that people understand that this is just a concept drawing.
Great point. Doug.
The only comment I was gonna make is number one, it's past time to do something like this. And there will be some private, public fundraising, and I will support it. The baseball community will support it. I think the Life Foundation will. I think the more we make it multi-use, the more our citizens and residents can use it for their own health and well-being and or emergency, whatever. I think it's way past time. I'm excited about the grant opportunity.
Michael.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea if we can get the grant money. My question goes to what Bill said, like, this is just a concept, or is this like in stone, or can parking spaces be moved around and what have you, or?
Yeah, so I'll answer that, and then also some additional information. So what we're asking for is just authorization to submit the grant application.
Right.
Their deadline is that it needs to be submitted by November 4th. They intend to award grants by December.
Right.
And so if awarded, at that time, we'll have the decision to move forward and sign the grant agreement. Now, there's no fine detail yet in all this. again, it's a many-year plan that we spent dollars on previously to make the best that we can make it from it. And in saying that, the grant does require that the project be completed in 2024, by the end of the year of 2024, and shovel ready in 2022. So if the grant is awarded, there's a lot of work to be done between now and then. I just thought that it's a wonderful opportunity, so we have to.
We appreciate that. This is just something going through on the preliminary cost on page 134. When you say like new construction, you have mechanical HVAC, and it's at 5,040 square feet rather than the 50,000, was that?
Oh, that's a mistake, yeah. So,
Good
good catch.
I was just like, I didn't know, because that's like turns that cost to from 120 to 1,200,000 on that line there.
I'll
Right?
double check on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I just saw that it was different than plumbing and fire, I was like, why is that 10 times smaller?
Yeah,
Andy?
sure. I just never see a problem with having staff, shoot for the moon on behalf of the village, so let's go.
Jay, Kevin?
I have 3 comments on it. I agree with the simple one. I agree with Bill. I think on the draft diagram, you should eliminate the future athletic fields and the future pool facility. Just leave that blank. We may choose to put City Hall, Police Department there. And why rally up people, even though it's a draft? I don't see the reason to put that in. It has nothing to do with the grant. So number one, I would eliminate those 2 things and just leave them open space. Number 2, which is probably a much bigger item to think about, and I don't want to be a downer on this, but there's been no calculation of operating costs to a building like this. I'm conservatively picking about, it's going to run us probably close to 200,000 to 250,000 to run this. We'll probably have to hire 2 to 4 staff people if we're going to keep the building open and running. You have the utilities of trying to cool and heat a 50,000 square foot building. You got the water, the sewer, maintaining it. I think there's not that should stop us from putting in, but I think someone needs to at least start calculating, because I'm not sure we have the space to actually increase a budget the amount that you would need to run a facility of this size and what everybody kind of has in mind there. I think the parking lot is absolutely huge, 234 cars. That seems like a whole lot of parking spots for a village of 4,000. And looking at the cost factor, I think where it is under budgeted is for sure furnishings and your auto visual. Just a fitness room would probably burn up at least 20% of the 500,000. We know how expensive phone systems are, computers, furniture. There's just, I think that's a little low at the 500,000 and the 25,000. But again, that's something that can be looked at another time. But I think we have to consider it's not just the capital, even though that may be free. There's a huge operating cost that will be tied to this building that needs to at least be looked at a little bit on what and how we would staff it, how we would maintain it. That's it.
Doug?
The only comment I'd make to that is there's certainly going to be a lot more opportunities for revenue. If we do field turf on a half, there could be lacrosse practices, there could be flag football. If we do a sport court on the other half, there could be volleyball clubs, volleyball tournaments. It's an opportunity to, yes, be an amenity for our residents, but also a great location and place to bring some people into our community.
Andy?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what a great problem to have, to try and solve a new recreation wellness complex and how we're gonna make sure that it can be sustainable in our community. I think that, thank you. Thank you for putting this out there, Bill.
Kevin?
Yeah, thanks, Judy. Two things. First of all, I love the idea of going out and taking a flyer on a grant like this when the opportunities arise. They don't arise that often. And when I'm done, I'd ask Bill to just give us a sense of applicate, percentage of if he knows who's applying, how many people are applying, and maybe the likelihood. And then the second point is we sort of let this go for a long time, and here it is like flash in front of us, this wonderful potential opportunity. And if the grant doesn't happen, let's not let this little flash just sort of go out. Let's actually continue with this discussion and maybe get some of these details nailed down. So if and when there's an opportunity in the future, we're ready with some more of that. I hope we get to spend a little bit more time in the next year or two figuring that out.
Thanks, Kevin. Anybody else?
Bill, could you speak to the percentage?
So I attended a webinar that was not required, but was set up for this application process. On the call, we had about 100 communities. Not all of them are going to qualify because their project scope and size is not large enough. It's $200 million in this pot. So depending on how many projects get submitted, and communities, municipalities can submit more than one project. So I don't know if I answered your question, Kevin, but I think that gives you a good idea of kind of where we stand.
No, that's exactly what I was wondering. Thanks, Bill.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Discussion of possible action regarding a resolution approving budget amendment 2021 to 2022.
I'll make a motion to pass the resolution amendment 2021-2.
I will.
Second.
Just a quick correction, resolution number 2021-16, the budget amendment is 2021-2. Second.
That's what the motion is, the second. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible action regarding the resolution to adopt ward plan and combine municipality wards for voting purposes.
You guys want a presentation?
Yeah. Thank you.
So following the 2020 census, and those numbers came out late, there's a requirement for the state, county, and local municipalities, organizations to redraw their electoral districts. Currently, the state is still undergoing theirs. They probably will not finish up until after we've done ours, and probably will end up in court deciding that. The county has decided and voted on their supervisor districts. So right now, all of Cross Plains and the new developments with Cross Plains were all in one district committee. From there, then we have approximately 60 days from when they made that decision to turn in ward maps. This is a bigger issue in cities where they have automatic, where the numbers of electors actually count towards their election, whereas in the villages, you're all at large. And so the requirement for in villages is that each ward needs to have between 300 and 1,000 people in each ward. And so based off of that premise and the list of requirements that we should look at under Wisconsin statute 5.15 and the guidelines provided by the Legislative Reference Bureau, we provided you with three options. The first option provides the most because of the way that our census blocks are set up in the village of Cross Plains, provides the most balance between population and deviation. The second ward map provides cleaner lines along the main thoroughfares and concentrates on keeping communities together, and also the compactness, which the words are. And the one thing about option 2 is that it anticipates future growth. So we do this every 10 years. Option 3 is a mix of the two. So as you can see, the lines aren't as clean, but it retains that compactness, and then it leaves some room to grow. If you look at the total numbers here, it anticipates some growth here in the village upcoming, and it concentrates that growth in wards 5 and 6.
Bill, could you explain the deviation percentage in here?
Actually, I'll let Bobby explain that. She's better at it than I am.
Yep, so our population was like 4,100, we'll say. So if you divide that between 6 wards, the like ideal population, I think is like 800, no, 600 and. So anyway, it gives you, what your ideal population is. So if you're, option 1, ward 1, we're 20% over the ideal number. Is our highest, and then ward 3 we're 20% under. So the total from the top to the bottom, our overall deviation is the 40%, because one ward is 20% over that ideal number. One ward is 20% under.
So the point here is to try to get the deviation as close to 0, but it's not a requirement that the deviation be absolute. One of the issues that we ran into is in Ward 1, which has the most numbers. All of this section here, which includes Gillsway and Ludden neighborhoods, they're all one ward. So in that ward, one census block, and in that block is like 700. So there's, with the scenic valley coming on, that in 10 years, that's going to exceed the 1,000 participant or 1,000 resident threshold, and so we'll have to adjust it at that point. But there's nothing more that we could do to reduce that Ward 1 deviation down at this point.
So Bill, that was my quick question. So as far as like scenic, and then if Ladopolis ever takes place, we don't have to worry about that for 10 years, no matter.
The numbers will still be added into the wards. So if it does go over, it's not like we're in violation, because we'll have to amend and fix it at the next census. But it's trying to make sense of the wards before the time. Again, this is very important in automatic systems where, the electors, you want to try to even them out as much as possible, less so in a village system.
And then did I miss them here? So did staff do a recommendation which one we should do?
We recommended option 2.
Okay.
Can you tell me why option 2?
Yeah, so option 2, just again, it's cleaner, it's drawn against lines, popular thoroughfares, major thoroughfares here. It breaks it up so that it respects neighborhoods. The reason why we kept with 6 wards is if ever the village would want to go to an automatic system or change the city, then you would have 6 wards for 6 aldermen and 1 at large for the mayor. And then it anticipates our growth area. So if you take a look at Ward 5 and Ward 6, looking at Ward 5, you could potentially include the remainder of Creek Crossing. That's about 300 residents, 250 to 300 residents there. And then the rest of the Xander Farm. In Ward 3, 732 to include Sundance, and then Ward 6 to include what would be PI and Ziegler. And so those, I don't think that all of that's going to happen in the next 10 years, but we wanted to provide the opportunity for that, and because we're not limited by the deviations and the restrictions of city council type automatic system, we felt that this was probably the best presentation.
I'll make a motion to accept option 2
I-
staff recommendation.
I think
Sorry,
I have some more comments here.
okay. sorry.
Yeah, I would highly recommend we don't go with option 2.
Oh,
Only because I like democracy. And I know this doesn't impact at-large elections in the village of Cross Plains, but we're setting a precedent that we're gonna value the votes of people who live in Ward 6 over those who live in Ward 1, because their mathematical vote is worth more than those who live in a higher ward population. So I would highly recommend that we just go with option 1, because in 10 years, when the census comes out again, we're gonna have to do this all over again. And in 10 years, then we can see like what are the populations of the new developments, and we're gonna do this all over again. So just in an effort to preserve democracy, I would highly recommend that we go with one with the less deviation as possible, especially since it doesn't really have an impact on village elections.
Bill,
So if we were,
I'm sorry, we have a motion, right? So I
No.
Didn't have a second.
no,
I know, but you did make a motion, right?
No, just made a comment.
Okay, sorry.
No.
Okay, Bill.
so, we're not a city. There's nothing that's going to affect any vote within the village of Cross Plains, regardless if we're going with concept 1, 2, or 3. None. The biggest problem that we had was the new area of over by Glacier Creek that was outside of a different county. So it had voting differences between the rest of Cross Plains and that area behind the middle school. Now with Dane County putting all of Cross Plains into that section, that's about as granular a democracy as we're going to get. Everyone else has the same vote. There's no, well, Ward 1 had more votes than Ward 6. It doesn't matter within our elections at all, period, unless we become a city. If we become a city, then we have a different discussion to have. But we're not, we're a village.
So why not just do what is most democratically in line with, one person, one vote? Why not just do what's right by democracy, even if it doesn't matter? Because that is the principle of what we need to represent as village elected trustees.
I honestly don't care which one we go with, honestly, because it doesn't matter.
Cool, then let's go with democracy then. That's what I would suggest.
You can't define, how do you define the democracy in one and not in the other two? I mean, I don't understand that, Andy.
Well, one has the votes of a certain ward, if we do go to a city, being valued more than another ward due to population. Right, kind of like Wyoming voters, votes matter more in the electoral college than Wisconsinites. Because there are fewer Wyomings per elector than there are Wisconsinites per elector, right? So you get 2 senators and 1 congressperson, 1 senator, 2 senators and 1 congressperson from Wyoming. And it's about 250,000 Wyomings per elector in the presidential election. And then in the state of Wisconsin, you've got 12 electors coming out of this state, and the number of Wisconsinites that get to participate in that decision are much greater. So the weight of the votes in Ward 1 that has 825, even in option 1, are going to be less valued, democratically speaking, than those in Ward 6, where there's 601 citizens to vote.
Less value to who?
Less value to the system, to the way in which democracy works.
But we're a village. We're not a
Right.
city.
It's the principle, Bill, that I'm trying to get you to understand here. It's the principle of democracy and moving away from gerrymandering and from valuing certain areas more than
I
others.
totally get that. And I'm on board with option 1. I don't have a problem with that.
So if it doesn't matter to anybody here, let's go with the one that I think is going to preserve the deviation over ease of drawing lines.
I like the smaller
that don't
overall
matter.
I'm looking for a
deviation.
motion.
Yeah, so
I move to approve option 1.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Let's do a roll call.
Oh, roll call, I'm sorry.
Is there any other?
Can you have some discussion?
Kevin, Jay, any other discussion?
Oh,
Doug does.
I would just ask Bill if there's a difference for staff.
No, there's not a big difference. I mean, these maps are, are recorded through the geographic information system through the state. It's as easy as printing one off the website. Again, in a village system, it's not a big issue until you go to that alternating system. There are minimum requirements that we do have to meet, and all options to meet those requirements. Yeah, I mean, the biggest issue I think you'll get is someone asking if they're in Ward 1 or Ward 2 during an election and having to explain that. And then one caveat is that the state hasn't drawn their lines yet. So for the state assembly districts, it does, one of the proposed maps still does propose that the Glacier Ridge neighborhood stay with a separate assembly member. So potentially we could still have two different ballots. If that does get passed. But otherwise, no, it's not an additional effort on village staff if we went with one versus the other.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Trustee Brunner,
Yes.
trustee Thuzius,
Yes.
trustee Brochus,
Yes.
trustee Calvater,
Yes.
trustee Hartman,
Yes.
trustee Paul Mikowski,
Yes.
president Langfeld.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay. Discussion of possible action regarding the ordinance to revise certain provisions of Chapter 22 concerning peace and good order.
Want a presentation on this one before you
I think so.
make motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we took a look at chapter 22. Kind of two reasons here. One, coming out of the block party and special event discussion. We went back and we found that block party was defined as a public event, thus incurring some of the challenges that came with it within the code. It allows the board to waive insurance requirements only for for private events, not public events. And there was a question of attendance. In a public event, you can't limit it. In a private event, you could. And so we felt that by changing that simple word, we would be able to meet the items that had been discussed at the meeting. Another part of section 22 is in regards to construction and repair time for buildings and developments. Currently, the code allows from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. on any day of the week. And so that the Planning Commission actually had discussed this at their meeting about limiting it to the times and the dates that are shown in the code. So because we're doing both those in the same ordinance, although they're separate issues, they all fall under peace and good order. And so that's why they're being presented together.
Michael?
So you're changing the definition of the block party from public to private, but then you said that it would still have to come in front of the board to waive the insurance, so we would still be always approving block parties now?
Yeah, so it depends, again, yeah, so if they are asking to waive the insurance, I believe the code says that the village board needs to approve that.
Any discussion? Kevin, Jay?
Nothing here.
Need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I move to approve the section 2213B6 of the village code ordinance. No, chapter
If you just want to read the top, so motion to approve the.
update. I'm sorry. I would like to move to approve the update to chapter 22 of the village code of ordinances.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, discussion of possible action regarding an ordinance to revise certain provisions of chapter 65, considering erosion control and stormwater management.
So the changes to chapter 65 reflects the changes that were made earlier this year to chapter 83, which is the subdivision ordinance. Primarily, the infiltration rate changed from 100% to 90%. and then allowing for the specific time of construction, the construction season through October as designated in the subdivision ordinance. All others will remain the same. And that's under section 1 here.
Bill,
I'll make a motion to approve the revised certain provisions of chapter 65 concerning erosion control and stormwater management as described in the village board meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I got a comment.
That's Jay.
Go ahead, Jake.
Okay, I guess I'm a little confused because number one, I thought that's what our statute states right now, May 1st to September 15th. And you're right, we moved the zoning from May 1st to September 30th for dirt moving, and then work within the right of way to October 30th. But if I'm reading this correct, what's in here, if I'm reading, it says the repeal and recreated to now read as follows. Those changes are not in that paragraph.
Yeah, so instead of writing it in two places and having to always change the two, what we did was we referred to section 83.104, which is where that language lives. So for subdivisions of 1 acre or more, those provisions would apply. For anything that is outside of a subdivision, these provisions here would remain.
Okay, so the September 15th is for single lots then,
If it's over an acre.
if it's over, okay. Okay, it's good then.
Does that make sense?
Or if it's under an acre.
Over an acre. Under an acre, you can go all year.
Okay, as long as they're they're compatible, and I see that in 83.104. I guess I'm just confused with the May 1 to September 15 part.
Sure.
That's stated in there.
Any other discussion?
Judy, this is Kevin.
Yep, sorry, Kevin.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Under section 2, I understand that the state has a 90% pre-development filtration volume that we cannot require anything greater than that at this current time. However, if that ever changes back where we can be have 100% infiltration rate or require that, then I would suggest we leave it in here or leave it as is, and maybe with the caveat that unless otherwise deemed by the state of Wisconsin or other such authority. Because for us to go back and change this, let's say the state does allow us to make our own requirements, we'd have to go back in and change this, and there's going to be that lag time and for that to all happen if somebody catches it in 5 or 10 years. So I would suggest we leave the infiltration rate at 100% unless deemed by the state.
So Kevin, we did make that change in the subdivision ordinance already from 100 to 90. I'll let Paul kind of answer or comment on that since we have him on.
Good evening. It's kind of funny that Kevin makes that point because it's been 3 or 4 years since the state reduced it from 100 to 90, and now we are just getting around to making that change. So his point is well taken. This particular paragraph can be worded however you like. If you wanted to say shall be 100% of the pre-development infiltration volume unless otherwise required by state or DNR rules and regulations, you could do that just as well.
Well, I would make a motion then to do just that. To change the language in here.
You want to amend?
Yeah, do you want to amend? I have a motion already and a second by Bill and Andy. So do you want to amend it to that?
Well, so
This would be an internal motion, right?
Oh, okay.
yeah, this would be an additional motion on top of this one. So basically what happens with the motion is once it becomes a motion and seconded,
Mhm.
whoever made that motion and seconded lose control of it.
Okay.
So it's now completely up to the board again. So now Kevin's gonna make an additional motion on top of that, that gets, motion, second, discussion, voted on, and then regardless how it votes, then we go back to this motion.
Okay. So Kevin, you made that a motion? And do we
Yes,
have a
please.
second? Do I have a second for Kevin's motion?
I'll second his motion.
So I have a motion on that from Kevin, and Andy was a second. All in favor of that?
Whoa, can we have I have a question on that for
Oh, okay.
discussion. Okay, I'm okay with it as long as the developer does not have to come to plan and to the board to receive a waiver on it. I have no problem if the language says we want you at 100%, but if the state requirement is 90%, that's what you can do. Because I think the whole idea of this was not have people have to come back to plan and the board to get a waiver from something that the state, that we can't enforce by state law. So I just want to make sure with Paul that if we put that language in, that makes it so they don't have to come back. They just have to follow the strictest rule.
Right, that would be correct. We will have to adjust our language a little more artfully than I said the first time around, so that we make it clear that the rule is 100. If the state or DNR says 75, then it's 75. So
Okay.
it'll be something along the line of 100% unless the state requires a lower level, and then the state rule will apply, something like that.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm good with that if they're okay with that.
So we're doing, okay, so we have the motion from Kevin and Andy, and that's going to be our vote on that.
So what is the motion?
Go to 100%.
Bobby, did you write something down?
I think the motion is to change the wording to what Paul has
Kevin
said.
and Paul said.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Which is 100%.
Kevin and Paul didn't say anything other than whatever Paul said.
So I would,
Right, so I mean, so I think we need some wording in there, so we know what we're approving or not.
Kevin's motion should be something along the line of to amend the original motion to make paragraph 2 reflect 100% or whatever the state of Wisconsin requires if it is lower than 100%. Something like that.
Kevin, you good with that?
yes, that encapsulates the nature of my motion. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm still seconding that.
Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign? Okay, so Kevin and Andy's passed. Now we go back to Bill and Andy's, right?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Discussion and possible action regarding a proposal for changes to the town and country sanitation, garbage, and recycling agreement.
All right, I'll go on this one too, before there's a motion. So I was contacted by Doug Enke, who is the president for Town and Country Sanitation, asking if the village would be open to a proposal to go to a cart pickup program. They call it a one pass program, but basically going from garbage bags to cart service. There are some changes that are summarized in your packet here. The type of carts will be 195 gallon garbage and then 195 gallon recycling. The garbage will be picked up weekly, and the recycling single sort will be picked up bi-weekly or every 2 weeks. As such, they are proposing that they purchase and own the totes, and so are asking for an extension of the current service agreement through 2028. In the schedule, you'll see there, and we've conducted the financial analysis on that. They would like to start in November and get the information out. They would take care of all the communication and the distribution of the cards. Everything else in the current contract would stay the same. So if you have large items or other type of pickup, you would still call them for that. With that being said, I said, hey, put together a proposal to bring it back. As you can see in my my memo here, at the last time we had this discussion about extending services with Town and Country, I think there were some comments made by trustees to go out for a true RFP for services. I don't know if you're going to get as good as rates as Town and Country. You can see that it doesn't change significantly going out. But again, I think there was card service has been discussed previously, and I think there are some policy questions that have derived from that, and that's just in that those are also listed in the code and policy review of the summary.
Bill?
So back around 7-8 years ago, there was an RFP for our sanitation in the village. Town and Country won that bid. One of the reasons they won that bid, not only, I don't know if pricing was all of it, but they also didn't do the one-stop sanitation. They could, people still use their own garbage cans, and they would pick up recycling, and so that was one of the big reasons why we continued with Town and Country. They did a great job. They're still doing a great job. But this is a pretty significant, not only change, but also extension to their 5-year contract. I would recommend that we actually do an RFP and bid this out to other organizations, because we're in a contract. So, we are in a contract till 2024. So either we keep what we have until 2024, or we send out an RFP and bid this out properly the way it should be done.
And I agree. So is that a motion? Because I'll second it.
That is the motion.
Okay.
Yeah, so the motion is we have an RFP for our sanitation in the village Cross Plains.
Okay, discussion, Doug?
I'm gonna go against that just because I feel Town and Country's been a good partner. I think they're being proactive here. And I would go with staff's recommendation.
Andy?
I'd like to comment.
Oh, sorry. Jay?
I guess I'm a little confused when we're talking about going out for an RFP. Right now, we're under contract through 2024. So you saying we end that contract and go out for RFP now? Or are you looking to wait until 2024 and then go out for an RFP? Because I think we have a good deal with the contract we have now, and I certainly don't want to go to that contract.
Bill,
So I'm curious. I guess I don't understand the timing of it right now.
I'm fine with maintaining our contract through 2024. I would not allow us to extend this to 2028. It's another 4 years additional from a current 5-year contract.
I don't think you have a legal motion if you're setting to go out to RFP in 2024, considering we're not allowed to mandate what a future board does. So I think the question should be, do we maintain the current contract or do we extend the current contract?
So let's vote on the resolution, vote it down, and then I'll change my motion.
Any other discussion?
That's presumptuous, but, okay, so, I'm a little bit apprehensive about the bi-weekly recycle pickup, but with the increase in the size of the container, I think that's more than ample space for the recycling that you would accumulate in 2 weeks. I also would, sort of reiterate some of the positives I've had with Town and Country as a resident, and I also just generally trust village employees and what the recommendations are, so I would support this.
Michael? Doug?
My comment would be just that I think we all understand the labor issues and challenges, so I think the timing and the reasoning is sound.
Michael?
I think Town and Country does a great job. I have a few concerns going with the large carts. One, they're gonna own it. I guess my question is, what happens if one gets destroyed? Does the resident have to purchase a new one? Or is Town and Country gonna provide that?
They would provide it, it's part of their fees. So that's the reason for extending the service back.
Okay, just wondering, don't want residents to incur additional fees like that. Second concern is moving to these larger carts. We have multiple older residents in the village moving around a 95-gallon cart when they have hardly any garbage in them might be kind of difficult for them. Also, the concerns that you listed in terms of cart storage, we're gonna put requirements on it. They're large, they could be unsightly. Before we just approve this tonight, I think some of these other issues should be concerned and possibly some feedback from the public. Thank you.
Bill?
The city of Madison has an ordinance that you're not allowed to be able to see your garbage bins or recycle bins from the roads because they're unsightly. And we have, although we have a lot of new homes in the area, we also have some very, older homes that may not have that garage space or the space to put two 95-gallon bins. I certainly appreciate the labor issue that Town and Country is having, and Doug is absolutely right. They've been a great partner. They've done a great service, and I'm not discounting that. I just think that we need to do this in the right way for as a village, and not just go 8 years into a 5-year contract.
Kevin, Jay?
Well, I guess we're I'm kind of with the people who support Town and Country. I would not have a problem going along with this because I know the turnover and the changeover is going to be costly to them. So I don't have a problem extending their contract another 4 years, but that's not really what the motion is right now. And I think we should clear the current motion and then have another motion so we can actually either continue with what we have or extend. Those seems to be the two options. And if there's time in between that's needed to do some research on some of that would be fine too.
I just have one comment about the contract. So the contract specifically says they're not doing what they want to do now. And I understand there's labor changes and whatnot, but that is a change in the contract. And typically for any business, if you see a change in a contract, a lot of companies, especially in the healthcare industry, will do an RFP, even though the contract is not expired yet. So, I mean, it's good practice. It's best practice to be able to do that, but.
Okay, so we did have a motion by Bill, second by me, and we can, all in favor, say aye.
Well, sure.
Are we, roll call? Okay.
Can you review the motion one more time?
Well, it was not to do.
Okay, yeah, okay, got it.
Which we don't think is legal, but okay. Roll call?
Trustee Paul Mikowski,
No.
trustee Hartman,
No,
trustee Kettlebaiter,
No.
trustee Brochus,
No,
trustee Thuzius,
No,
trustee Brunner,
No,
president Langfeld.
No,
Okay, so now we're back.
yep, now we're back. So I guess there's three options. One, if we think we have enough to break the contract, you do that, then go out for RFP. Or you see if we can keep the contract to 2024, then go to RFP if they want to, or accept what they're saying is extending the contract through 2028. Those seems to me are the three options we have.
I would throw another option in there, and that is extending it some period, not 4 more years, but maybe 2.
Oh, sure,
I mean, there might be something in there to negotiate.
sure. All right, I'll make a motion to continue with Town and Country through 1/1 of 2020, well, I guess 12/31 of 2024, and then extend it for 2 more years to 12/31 of 26.
I'll second.
Yeah, okay.
I just want to clarify.
Yeah, which,
Clarification on that, so that to 2024 and then extended 2026 with CART, the one pass program,
that's what I'm asking.
correct?
Yeah, we would, I mean, I guess the contract says they're gonna pick up our trash. And Bill makes a point that we can try to break the contract because it's not exactly what we agreed upon 2 years ago. But on the other hand, we can honor the contract. It's just a different process in getting the garbage picked up due to the changing times.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, starting, so under your proposal, we would start the CART service in November and then go through 2026. It's not under the current services through 2024 and then changing.
Correct.
Okay.
Doug,
Wouldn't that change some of the pricing because one of their ideas for extending the contract is to recoup their investment? So I would assume if we shorten it, that we would have to pay a little bit more.
Yeah, they might want to alter their pricing sooner, what he's saying. Because we don't know what their contract's gonna be if we run it through 2026.
Well, I
Then
guess
they're gonna have
that's,
to propose a new contract.
yeah, I guess that's kind of what you kind of gamble when you open up a contract. Here's the offer in front of us that they're willing to agree upon. If we don't, then I guess we go into negotiations, and you're right. I think a lot of that stuff may change, but it's if you want to agree to what they've agreed to is what's in front of us. We could say yes to this and the deal's done. If we don't agree to it, then I think we have to open it up for negotiations.
Is Paul still on?
Paul is still on.
All is here.
It's Bill. I got a question for you. So we have a contract through 2024. Would we be out of line by extending a contract with a vendor without giving anyone else opportunity to get that business after the 2024? So let's say we extend this to 2026. Would we be out of line as a village by doing that, by not giving other vendors the opportunity?
I don't think you would be out of line by extending it for a couple of years with your current vendor. Because it's as someone else said a couple minutes ago, it's basically the same deal with a different, you're using different technology to accomplish the goal. I think the bigger question that you need to look at is, do you want to go to carts in the first place? And I think it was Doug who just said that a couple minutes ago, which is the pricing here is going to be significantly different at some point in time. I went through this in another municipality, and it took quite a while to actually drill down and figure out what the cost of the carts is versus the not carts, and what the change in your pickup schedules are. And a lot of people just are uncomfortable with, getting the carts out to the curb and all of those issues. So as another option that you might want to think about is you might want to just leave your contract exactly where it is right now, but enter into the negotiations with Town and Country for the new technology and see where it takes you. And then if you're not completely comfortable, then you can always go out for RFP at the end of 2024, but at least you'll have some information as to what you're looking for when that time comes.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, just one thing, I just want to piggyback on Paul, and Bill brought it up early on. 7-8 years ago, when we did do this contract, the one prior to this, we did send it out to RFP, as Bill said. Town and Country was the only one that came back that did not use the cart system. I think it'll be very difficult to find another vendor that doesn't use the cart system. And I remember that was a big discussion when we had that discussion, if we should convert over. But just to throw it out there, Town and Country at the time was the only one that we received a bid from that did not use carts.
Okay, Andy, sorry.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, one of the unsightly things that I noticed when we have pickups is every single household just has bags of trash laying in the front yard every single time we get pickup. And maybe this cart system will also just kind of just make a more uniform presence and also just make it a little bit more efficient in the process. And so, yeah, I'm still in favor of this.
Bill?
We have a hand raised by Dr. Johnson.
Oh.
Are you taking public?
Sure. Seth?
Sure. I just want to point out that Wanakee has the same size carts, and they just started going to every week recycling pickup this year because they were having too much recycling, even those large containers, to go every 2 weeks. So, Town and Country has a pretty good idea of what they see out there every week. So maybe we don't recycle as much as Wanakee, but they made that switch this year to every week recycling with 95-gallon carts.
This is Kevin. Judy, I'd like to speak, please.
Yep, you bet.
Thanks, Judy. Yeah, I think if it's a very real possibility that Town and Country may not be able to keep up with the current process. And then we have to, negotiate anyways at some point. Then they would really be out of contract. I guess the one thing that we all wanted to avoid certainly is that happening when they don't have the ability to pick up for a period of time, and we're out there scrambling to try to get a contract. So I think that is a sort of worst case scenario, but it very well could happen if they aren't able to hire and keep up with the current process. So I'm in favor of getting this signed and moving on.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. No more discussion.
What's our motion?
Oh, actually, I thought I did it. Jay and Andy.
But it only goes to the 26th, 20-year.
2026, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not what was presented at short.
All right.
Or, and going with the, can I ask a question?
Hmm?
How do we know if we needed to go to a recycling program every week if a bunch of residents are calling in saying my recycling's overflowing, and then we have to renegotiate another contract with them to try to get a weekly recycling pickup? What would have to be done?
Yeah, so I would imagine that the way we would deal with it first is on a case-by-case basis. Unless we're having everyone in the community saying it's not big enough, then we would have to either consider a bigger part or going to weekly. But then, yeah, we would have to negotiate that in the contract.
Bill?
I really like Paul's suggestion. I'm gonna vote against this. But one of the things that we need to look at as a board is recycling twice a week. Most weeks throughout the year is gonna be fine, but you get those holidays where you have, guests come over, family come over, and you're gonna have way more recycling than you can fit in a 95-gallon tub. And today, it's not a big deal. Your boxes, you just flatten them out, put them up on the curb with the rest of your recycling. And if you even have an excessive recycling, they take care of it right now. If you're limited to 95 and you can't put anything else on the curb other than those 2 bins, I think that we're going to be causing more of an issue during some parts of the year than not. I'm not in favor of going down this road right now. I think we hold Town and Country to their contract of 2024.
Andy?
Yeah, I would agree with Bill, and it could offer an opportunity for residents to reflect on their use of waste and maybe, use less and, conserve more and not put so much out on the curb. And so I think that could have a positive impact policy-wise on our village and just generally on the world.
You want to do a roll call vote? Okay, roll call vote.
Trustee Hartman,
Yes.
trustee Paul Mikowski,
Say no.
trustee Brunner,
No,
trustee Thuzius.
Could you repeat the motion, please? Sorry.
I'm to start cart service and extend it through 2026.
That's what I thought. Okay, yes.
Trustee Brochus,
No,
trustee Calvater,
No,
president Langfeld.
Yes.
motion fails.
Nope,
Oh, did it?
passport.
4-3.
Oh, it did, sorry. My phone went.
No, I had 4 things.
it failed.
Yeah.
It failed.
I think it.
Andy,
3, 4.
Michael,
Oh,
Julie,
I wrote
and
the
myself.
wrong. Okay, yeah.
Wait.
No.
I
I voted yes, Doug voted.
Oh, Doug voted, no, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
I had it as a fail.
It's still 4.
Yeah.
I just missed.
Motion fails. Okay. Are you good, Bobby? Do you want us to go back through that?
What's that?
Do you got them all? Do you
I'll
want-
listen to the recording. Yeah.
Okay,
So I'll make a motion on the same subject, that we hold Town and Country to their contract of 2024. And then I like, that's it for that's it for the motion. I'll leave it at that. Now I got to comment that, folks.
but do we even need a motion then? We don't need a motion, I don't think on that, because it is, we're not changing nothing.
Oh, that's true, you're right.
We're not changing nothing, I don't think we need a
Okay.
motion, right?
So the motion would be just to deny the proposal.
Right, well, which we just did. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Do you want a motion, Bill, or no?
I think for clarification purposes, I think it makes sense to take a vote on the exact proposal and say.
I will make a motion to approve as staff recommended, the TNC proposal, town and country proposal.
I will second that motion.
Then I'll request a roll call vote.
Okay, roll call.
Wait.
Discussion.
So staff recommends extending it to 2028
That's correct.
With the bids.
with the bids.
With the bids.
Okay, roll call.
Trustee Calvater,
No,
trustee Hartman,
Yes.
trustee Paul Mikowski,
No.
trustee Brunner,
Yes,
trustee Thuzius,
No.
trustee Brochus,
No,
president Langfeld.
Yes.
I
Motion
say
failed, yeah.
it failed.
it failed.
Or
It failed.
Motion fails. Okay, discussion and possible action regarding the memorandum of understanding with Neiman Foods, Inc.
All right, so this is a memorandum of understanding between a potential, or Neiman Foods Incorporated, which is proposing a hardware store for the old World of Variety building located at 40 Glaciers Head Square. The agreement sets up parameters for redevelopment of the square, namely the space that's in front of their store, immediately in front of their store, which is highlighted in the red, and then Glacier's Head Square Park, which is highlighted in the yellow. And those improvements reflected in the restaurant. Questions?
Bill,
I'll make a motion, we approve the memorandum of understanding with Neiman Foods.
I will second.
discussion? Jay, Kevin,
Nope, good.
Nope.
anybody else? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Discussion and possible action regarding the amendment of the Sundance pre-annexation agreement.
Want a presentation on this?
I would like.
Yes.
Yes, please.
All right, so, seems like annually now, we've have extended the pre-annexation agreement between the village and, Oregon Parks, which is for Sundance Development on Brewery Road. Currently, they do have an approved preliminary plat, that was approved in 2019 in February. And that does expire within 36 years of approval, unless extended. As part of the village's process in getting to that final plat approval, which is required in the current pre-annexation agreement by the end of the year, we need to negotiate the development agreement. We also, before the final plat is submitted, we also have to make a decision on annexation before that time also. So what has been proposed here is extending another year into 2022, the requirement for the development agreements and the requirement to submit the final plat, so that we can have that time to negotiate.
Can I ask one question? Is one of the big hangups on this still is the road?
Yes.
So it's between the town and us as far as the road?
Nope, so
They turned us down?
yeah, so we went to the township and we asked for that jurisdictional transfer. Yeah, they said no. For Brewery Road. And so, right now we're back at the drawing board. One of the requirements of the peer annexation agreement is that all of Brewery Road be brought in to the village. So that's still an issue that needs to be resolved through this process, whether it's negotiation and or whether it's through the annexation process brought forth by the developer. We have not received an annexation petition yet at this point.
Thank you. Discussion?
No, we don't have a discussion.
Make a motion. So I just have one question. Is the holdup on Sundance's part, or the village's part, or the town's part, or combination of all three?
So I think the extension is both on a combination of the village and Sundance. We don't have the details yet needed to get anywhere close to having a development agreement. We need to, beyond just the annexation issues and the Brewery Road issues, there's a number of things that we still need to negotiate through this process. And quite frankly, we don't have that time between now and the end of the year to do so.
So we're gonna have that time in 1 year?
We will. We just need to get to it. As part of that, I think we've done a lot of work. So we haven't been sitting on our butts this whole past year. We've been working, and staff has been looking at potential infrastructure improvements and ways to possibly meet some of these requirements in the pre-annexation agreement. And so there's been some negotiation. We just haven't had time to yet propose that and bring it to the village board. And that negotiation of the development agreement would happen in full session until we get an agreement. Obviously, the final plat needs to substantially meet that of the preliminary plat. And then again, there's still the question of annexation and how is the annexation petition submitted to the village. And then that's a separate discussion point that the village board will have. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Any discussion? Any motion?
I move to approve the extension to the preliminary plat and pre-annexation agreement.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Do a roll call. Oh, Doug.
Well, just as part of discussion, I would, I guess, if there's a way or just talking through it, if we could not extend it a whole nother year, maybe 6 months and get on it or get off it. I think there's been ample time in the last 3 years. And I think there's some fairly big obstacles, so I would just assume we get after the big obstacles within 6 months versus 12 months. That would be my comment.
I got a comment too.
Kevin?
Thank you, Judy. It's highlighted here on page 178. The state statute the state statute requires that the final plat be approved, pretty much approved unless there's a major differences by the board. Again, that's where the state took local control away. And I'm not a huge fan of extending this again, but I guess I can see some reasons to do that, or at least to look at it. But I really have a problem with extending the state statute here under 4E, the approval. The 36 months comes up in February, March, whatever it might be. We still can approve it after that. It's just we're not required to approve it in the same way, shape, or form. We actually gain more control after February or March of 2022. And so I'd like to see the part that's been added in taken out. And I don't know if Bill or Paul want to speak to that, if I've got that right.
Yeah, I've asked Paul to be here for this conversation this evening, so he can give us some expertise in this.
I think I think what Kevin said is correct, but the flip side of that is that then on the day before the 36 months expires, the developer submits the final plat. He's now in complete compliance with the statute, and the plat is basically needs to be approved by the village because there hasn't been any changes made to it. That then kind of locks in, and plat approval or plat submittal does not necessarily mean that the development agreement and the annexation petition have to all come in at the same time. That just means that now the plat is there, it's deemed ready to be approved, and it kind of handcuffs both the village and the developer as they try to negotiate these other 2 points. So I think that's the benefit to extending this for a period of time, just because we don't have the ducks in a row right now.
Kevin, Jay,
Nope, I'm good.
anybody else? We have a motion and a second on the table. Michael?
I don't know. I agree with Kevin. I don't like waiving that 36 month, but with what you're saying, he's just gonna submit that without having a development agreement, and it just creates a weird situation for him. I mean, is he gonna do that? That's just a game of chicken to play, man. Really?
Yeah, there's still a lot of questions, and again, the proper way to do this is negotiate on the way there. Doug brought up a good point. I think as proposed, it's good. Kevin brought up good points too, but that's why you guys are in the position of making those policy decisions.
I'd be more comfortable 6 months than 12 months, and at the 6 month point, if there's major progress, we can go another 6. But I just want some movement.
Make a motion.
But we do
That's
have
my
a
discussion. There's a motion and a second.
I'd amend my motion for 6 months.
No, so we're.
You made it, yep,
No, so again, so the people that made the motion
right,
no longer have control of the motion,
okay.
right? So now if Doug or someone else wants to make a motion that in this agreement, we limit it to 6 months rather than 1 year, that's a motion that needs to be seconded and voted upon. Then we come back to this motion again.
Doug?
Yeah, I'm fine. I thought Andy did that. I'll second it
Okay, we have a first and a second
on the 6 months.
on the 6 months.
Correct.
All in favor, say aye.
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 No.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Michael and Kevin Reynolds. Now we still need a motion on Mike, and, we still need all in,
Yeah.
A discussion?
a discussion on Bill's and Andy's proposal or motion. Which there is no discussion, so all in favor of that one?
Roll call vote.
Let's do a roll call
Okay, roll call vote.
Trustee Thuzius,
No.
trustee Brunner,
Yes.
trustee Paul Mikowski,
No.
trustee Hartman,
No?
trustee Calvater,
No.
trustee Brochus,
Yes.
president Langfeld.
Yes.
It's failed 4-3.
Okay, but do you
It failed
realize,
4-3.
so it fails, so what, the people who wanted it 6 months, basically, when you pass that, changed the original one from 12 to 6, and now we voted that down, so we've basically voted everything down. I just want to make sure everybody understands how.
Oh, that's not what I
That's
understood.
exactly right.
That's
Jay,
right.
Jay's exactly right.
Wait.
Okay, now we're confused.
I thought we supported the 6-month change and then the 12-month.
We actually changed.
Was it really?
They changed, so the first motion was to approve the extension.
By 12 months.
No,
Okay.
no, that's not right. The first motion was to change the 12-month extension period to a 6-month extension period. That passed. The second motion was to go back to the original motion, which was to approve the agreement in the first place, and that failed 4-3.
No.
Yes,
I
yes.
respectfully disagree. The first motion was to supported the amendment of the Sundance pre-annexation agreement.
For 6 months.
No, it was just that agreement. Then there was an amendment, so that was seconded and had discussion. Then we went to an amended vote to change that language from 1 year to 6 months. That passed. So now you're back to the original motion.
Which failed
Which
4-3.
failed, exactly.
So we didn't.
So right now, we don't have anything.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion for reconsideration.
Very good.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call vote.
Well, let's have a discussion.
Sure.
Okay, the only reason I'm doing this is because I think there was some confusion. And I think the last vote was basically to extend this 6 months, which I thought originally passed. So I'm not sure why it didn't pass the second time. So I'm doing reconsideration. So in case people want to change their vote.
So you're reconsidering the agreement for 6 months?
Correct.
Correct,
That was what the amendment was.
correct. The annexation agreement approved with the new time frame of 6 months.
Correct.
That's what the roll
That's the
call
one I
vote
want for
for.
reconsideration.
Okay.
Exactly.
Roll call.
So are we voting on that right now? Or we-
Yes.
We are.
We got to vote on it.
Yeah, vote on the reconsideration.
Consideration, right, that's what we're voting on. The reconsideration.
And then
we have to.
Correct.
make
Vote
Right.
on the motion again.
Yep.
the-
For Bobby. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Roll
Or do you
call.
want to do roll?
Yeah, let's do roll call.
Trustee Brochus,
Yes.
trustee Thuzius,
No.
trustee Brunner,
Yes.
trustee Paul Mikowski,
No.
trustee Hartman,
yes.
trustee Calvater,
Yes,
president Langfeld.
Yes.
so motion passes.
Yep. So now we got the motion back for reconsideration.
You vote again.
Yep.
Yeah, so you vote again on the agreement for 6 months.
And.
Yeah.
So my question though is the 6 months includes the waiving of the 36 months, how it's written in here? We're just changing all the dates to basically June 30th of 2022,
That's all I understand.
Correct.
just making sure what we're voting.
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay,
Roll
thank you.
call vote.
That's why I'm voting no. You took that out, I might vote yes.
Is there a motion in a second on that one?
I thought Doug made the motion.
I will make the motion for 6 months.
I will second it.
Paul, you can correct me, but under reconsideration, I don't think you have to remake the motion. The motion is just being reconsidered that was made, which is to extend this for 6 months.
That's correct.
So there, you don't need any other motions. Motion's back on the table.
Okay, any discussion, then roll call.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Hartman,
Yes.
trustee Paul Mikowski,
No.
trustee Calvater,
Yes.
trustee Brochus.
Yes,
Trustee Bremer,
Yes.
trustee Thuzius,
No,
president Langfeld.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Okay, discussion and possible action regarding irrigation meters.
So this proposal was submitted by trustee Palmachowski regarding the current rate structure for irrigation meters. Proposing a change to an additional meter. And trustee Michael, I'll let you.
Okay, I'll talk about this. This is just a concern of mine that's coming up inside of our ongoing rate case right now. Currently, residents pay a $9.50 fee for their general residential service and $9.50 for an irrigation meter per month. This passes the break-even point at 10,000 gallons currently, because we actually charge 44 cents more per 1,000 gallon for irrigation water than water that you use to clean your dishes, shower, and etc. The concern, and as you can see, there were some summaries on there about how in certain years, only so many of our about 200 customers in 2020, 42 customers used more than the 10,000 gallon, which means about 160 customers weren't making the most money out of their irrigation meter. They're just paying that money. So, and there's break even, the equations. Fearful that as we go through this rate case and we start to see a 40, 50 to 60% rate hike, these meter costs per month are gonna get up into the $13, $14 range. And you're basically counteracting the general philosophy that an irrigation meter is supposed to offset your sewer charge, because we're gonna be jacking up the cost of the meter so much that it's gonna behoove many residents not to even have them. Now, by changing to the additional meter schedule, I've indicated that the utility will lose income because they aren't getting the fixed costs from the meter, which would incur, those costs would have to be made up on other customers of the water utility. With a general increase per resident of 72 cents a month, person with the irrigation meter would be saving. And so that works out for them, but by not changing to the additional meter schedule, you run the risk of having a lot of people remove them and the utility isn't getting that income. And nobody has an irrigation meter then, or they're very limited in scope, which I don't think bodes well for the residents of Cross Plains and the utility that they would receive from having that meter, should they want to water their garden or start an outdoor hockey rink, whatever. And that was my proposal. I make a motion to change the rate that the irrigation meters are billed in the village of Cross Plains by moving them to the additional meter schedule, where they are charged at half the cost of the regular general service meter and at the same rate as the same water rate as the metered residential service.
second,
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I would like to speak. It's
Okay.
okay.
Yep.
All right, so here's what I have, two areas of concern with this. One is we're boosting people's water rates by 40 to 60%. And at the same time, we're going to take a select few of residents and cut their costs. So other people will have to pay a higher burden for it. I think there's already a misconception that we're building a well because of the water use. So do we want to encourage people to use water outside the home? I think the image of raising rates and then giving people a cut in rates will not go over well. I don't think it makes sense to basically subsidize irrigation meters. I think we should be conserving water. I know in the Midwest, water is much more available than other parts of the country, but I think that's not going to necessarily last forever. So I think we should be conserving our use of water. I think that's in the sustainability plan to conserve water. I don't think this does it. I think people have an alternative of using rain barrels and other things to water their flowers and garden. And I think at a time where we're raising so much money and asking residents to pay so much, for us to even think of reducing this is not good public policy, either on the cash flow side or the use of water. And where people may remove their irrigation meter, that may happen, but it won't happen in all happen in 1 year. It'll be probably a slow thing, while this increase of 12 grand will happen immediately and forever. So I am not in support of doing this.
I'm agreeing with you, Jay, and with that reason also, I'm not supporting it either. Any other discussion? Bill?
Well, I was gonna say there's a hand raised here, Seth Johnson again.
Seth?
Thank you. I think this would be a great move. I think the fee already is ridiculously high for a second meter. I know I'm one of the people that I put that in at the beginning, and it basically was not a good idea. I think especially if the rates go up to $13, just, I mean, I can't believe that the additional administrative cost of having that second meter is anywhere close to that. And so already paying 140 something bucks just as a base fee for that second meter, I think is already ridiculous. Raising that higher, I think would be even more ridiculous. I would definitely be one of the people that would be looking to get rid of my second meter, especially if the rates go up like that. Thank you.
And this is Kevin, Judy.
Sorry. Kevin?
Thank you. Yeah, I think Jay said something about a small number of people, but I think it's almost 200 residents or 200 homes. And if I recall, the trash, the town and country said we have 1,200 homes. So that's roughly 1 in 6. That's, what is that, 16%, 13%, something like that. That's quite a few residents that have this. And I was actually quite startled to find out on the other committee I'm on that they were so high. So I'm in support of doing this. I'm in support of water conservation for sure, but I don't think that I'm also in support of conservation of our sewer system. So I guess I'd be more apt to see folks use this in a responsible way outdoors. So I'm for making this change.
Any other discussion, Michael?
Yeah, I'll just answer some things that Jay said. I mean, he was talking about how doing this, you would be, that the current customers would be subsidizing the irrigation customers, whereas currently just the exact opposite is true. Currently you have 200 irrigation customers, and out of those, 160 of them have been subsidizing the regular customers for many, many years now. Granted, and these irrigation meters, I'm not sure we should be looking at them as this guaranteed source of income, as it is an optional meter. It can be removed, and discounting this loss in income, it's optional income anyway. it's not guaranteed. So encouraging people to keep them would, I think, would secure that income, that optional income.
Bill?
Is there a cost to the village if we do this?
I didn't look into that, but I think it would just be small changes inside the billing system, right, Bobby?
Sorry, I was looking up the PSC. Asked some questions about this, and so I was bringing that up, so I wasn't paying attention to your question.
Okay. Bill asked what the cost of the village would be, and I think that this would just be adjustments inside of the billing software if this was implemented, right? In terms of changing.
Right, yeah, just be changing the rates in the billing software.
Still, it's not a whole lot of work to just like.
So there's no physical changes that need to be done on people's property?
Nope.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Oh, sorry.
So on our original rate case application, we had mentioned that we were looking into this. So they just wanted, I guess, more detail, more reasoning for this request. And so then we had replied at the time that the board hadn't voted on this, so we were withdrawing that request. So now we'll have to let them know that we're not withdrawing this request.
When is the deadline to?
Thursday.
Plenty of time.
So yeah,
Can
we
they
just,
deny us?
huh?
Can they deny this?
Yeah, the PSC can come back and say no.
So yeah, originally they were asking for more reasoning and more detail why we want to do this.
And like my report says, other communities do this. Verona and Black Earth have their second meter at half price and the same rate. It's not outside of the thinking of the Public Service Commission.
Okay, we have a motion. Do you want to do roll call vote?
Yep.
Ready? Trustee Brunner,
No,
trustee Brochus,
No,
trustee Thuzius,
Yes.
trustee Hartman,
Yes.
trustee Paul Mikowski,
Yes.
trustee Kettlebaiter,
No,
president Langfeld.
No.
motion fails. Discussion of possible action regarding the 2022 draft budget. Bob, it's you.
I think we are just providing an update of where we are since changes from the last meeting. And then I have a little. Yep, so currently then the levy increases at 2.98. And the tax rate would be a 1.38% increase. Is where we're currently at. So I think this is just kind of letting you know where we're at. I don't think we were really looking for action on it.
Yeah, we want to provide a last chance to look at this. We do have to submit this for a public hearing notice quickly following this meeting, so that we can make it in time for November 22nd, and then thereafter, your vote on the actual look. November 22nd.
Any discussion?
Well, I just want to make a comment. I still think 2.98 is too high. I think we should try to trim $20,000 to $25,000 off the budget to get it down to the 2.25. It's nothing new than I said before. I just think that it's too high right now. And the only question I have on the memo is it's related to that this is lower than the inflation rate, and I'm unable to find it where that is true. The 2021 inflation rate hasn't been calculated. The 2021 is much lower than this. It's under 2%. I think you got to go back 9-10 years to find the inflation rate of 2.98. But otherwise, those are my comments. I don't expect any action on it tonight.
Okay. This distribution of proposed sustainable plan.
So this had been, the sustainability committee had been working on a sustainability plan for, I think, over a year and a half, almost 2 years now. They are providing this for you to review. The intention is to provide a presentation at the November meeting. We'll have the committee chair provide a presentation of the village board adopting the final plan. So no comments or no actions at this time, just simply distribution of this document.
And I'll say that if anyone has any questions, the sustainability meeting is 2 weeks from Tuesday. So, you know, if you want to fire them off us before that, you know, we could address it and come back with a better, I think we're going to do a little presentation at the next meeting. This is a speed read beforehand.
This will be on the next village board agenda for approval, Bill?
That's correct, November 22nd.
Thanks.
Anybody have any future items for the coming up? Kevin, Jay?
No, Judy, I just want to thank you for running the meeting for me tonight. You did a great job. Thank you.
I'd like to say it was my pleasure, but no.
Did a great job, Judy.
But don't do it again. Okay, do I get a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Doug
Second.
and Bill. Do I need roll call? for closed
Yes.
session? Yeah. Okay.
Trustee Calvater,
Yes.
trustee Brochus.
Yes.
Trustee Pomakowski,
Yes.
trustee Thuzius,
Yes.
trustee Brunner,
Yes.
trustee Hartman.
Yep.
President Langfeld.
Yes.
We're in closed session.
All right, Kevin and Jay, I'm gonna break you into a breakout session here. Go ahead.
What do you want me to say?
I moved to enter a closed session.
Second.
Nice.
All in favor, say aye.
No, no, roll call.
Oh, roll call, okay. Roll call.
There's a second.
Yeah, Bill.
Trustee Calvater,
Yes.
trustee Brochus.
Yes.
Trustee Pomakowski,
Yes.
trustee Thuzius,
Yes.
trustee Brunner,
Yes.
trustee Hartman.
Yep.
President Langfeld.
Yes.
All right, I will break you guys back into the room.
There is no third one.
So just
And Kevin, yeah, it was my bad.
We're in open session.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign.
All right.
Hi, guys.
Great meeting, good night, everybody.
Thanks, Judy.
Thanks.